What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and every Wednesday I go through and update the rest of season rankings on the Patreon. I give out my top 25 quarterbacks, tight ends, my top 50 running backs and wide receivers, and I rank them for the rest of the season. And then I come to you guys in the YouTube space, and I let you guys know the players that rose the most spots from last update to this update. So we're going to go through 5 players that are skyrocketing up my rest of season rankings for week 10. If you want to check out the complete rest of season rankings I drop every single week, that'll be on patreon.com/Ron Stewart. If not, I appreciate any like and subscribes. If you guys enjoyed the video, let's not waste any more time. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical. My nitty bag.
Our first player here is Kenneth Walker, who has gone from my RB12 and has jumped up 5 spots to my RB7. And I had him at RB12 last week, and I've been hesitant to move him up, but he has just been undeniable. I think Joe Mixon's 55-point game last week kind of overshadowed Kenneth Walker finishing as the RB2 overall in the week with 27.9 PPR points. He had 26 rushes, 109 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 4 targets, 3 catches, 20 yards through the air. And at this point, we know Kenneth Walker's an elite rusher. He was an elite rusher at Michigan State. He looked amazing in yards created. That actually bumped him up in my prospect model. And now he's 5th in rushing yards over expected per attempt. He's 7th in breakaway run rate. He is the fastest clocked ball carrier speed on NFL Next Gen Stats with a 22-mile-per-hour run. He checks all the boxes between the tackles. But what led me to want to move him up here is 4 targets, 3 catches for 20 yards on Sunday. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that is an extra, 3 catches, 20 yards. That's like an extra 5 points. That really sort of extends your ceiling as a fantasy running back. And this was his career high target total. Only 4 targets, but it was his career high, and it could be a sign of more to come. Now, over the past 4 weeks, he's not only set a career high in targets with 4, but he has 2 games with 55% or better route participation. We want 50% plus is good, 60% plus is elite. 55% plus for Kenneth Walker is amazing. By the way, this chart that sort of breaks down snaps, rush attempts, all of the usage is from the utilization report by Dwayne McFarland. I believe it's on PFF. I believe it's on Fantasy Life. He does amazing work there. Now, he also has 2 games with 10% or better target share in the last 4 weeks. So he's kind of giving you signs here that the Seahawks are allowing him to participate in the passing game. It's also a huge bump or a huge bonus that week 7 he had 100% of the 2-minute drill snaps. He had 33% of the long down and distance snaps in week 9, 46% of them in week 6. The signs are there that he could get that upside unlocked in the receiving game. This is a guy that could get 4, 5, 6 targets per game. Then we're talking about like a top 3 to 5 running back here. Regardless, if the receiving upside doesn't materialize, right, we're kind of moving him up, 1, because he's been so good, but 2, because the receiving upside could materialize here. But regardless, he has finished as a top 12 running back in 3 of his last 4 games. You have to kind of just tip your cap to that type of production from a rookie. We know rookies get better as the season goes on. I have him, after McCaffrey, Eckler, Saquon, Henry. I think those are the pretty locked in top 4 running backs. I think Kenneth Walker is right in that next tier. Next, we have TJ Hockenson rising up 4 spots in the tight end rankings from tight end 9 to my tight end 5. And I was honestly really surprised to see how much the Vikings used him in just his first game after being traded there. I wasn't huge on Hockenson on the Vikings, right? Change of scenery for tight ends. It wasn't the sexiest move in the world. I know Irv Smith went down. Irv Smith has never really been all that fantasy relevant, but it was insane how much they really used him. He had his 2nd highest scoring game of the season. He had 9 targets, 9 catches, 70 yards for 16 PPR points as the tight end 5 on the week. Again, that is his 2nd highest target total of the season, his 2nd highest PPR game of the season. This is all behind that weird fluky blow-up game versus Seahawks. He also looked good in terms of usage. He ran a route on 84% of dropbacks. I would say 80% plus for a tight end is elite. It was his first time over 25% target per route run and 25% target share in a game over his last 4 weeks. I can't stress enough how crazy this is. The usage was great, the production was great, and it was just his first game. They could want to get him more involved. He probably doesn't even know the entire playbook at this point. And then you also have Adam Thielen here with an injury. He could miss a week or 2, which would kind of just propel Hockenson that much further. And I think this move from the Lions to the Vikings, what it really outlines is just a huge ceiling boost for Hockenson on a weekly basis, just because this is a pass-first offense. Kirk Cousins is an upgrade from Jared Goff. And then Justin Jefferson also operates much more of a deep threat than Amon-Ra St. Brown, where his and Hawkinson's skill sets sort of intertwined, right? They kind of were redundant, but Jefferson sort of blows the top off the defense, gives you a lot of efficiency. I think that's going to help Hockenson a lot. So I think after like the big two of Kelsey, Andrews, I'll probably put Kittle and Goddard in there too. I think Hockenson is squarely in that conversation for like tight end 4, 5, 6 rest of season. If you drafted him, I would be pretty happy with where he's at for the rest of the year. And we have a 2-for-1 special. We have Diontae Johnson and George Pickens here. We have Diontae Johnson going from wide receiver 30 to wide receiver 24 with a 6-spot increase. You have George Pickens going from wide receiver 38 to wide receiver 35 with a 3-spot increase. Now, I don't love vacated targets, but with Chase Claypool being gone via trade, I think you have to give him a little bit of a bump. Claypool had 50 targets through, I want to say, 8 games. He had a 17.5% target share. And we're in a rare spot here where before that trade, the Steelers had a lot of pass catchers. You had Freiermuth, Diontae, Claypool, Pickens, Najee Harris out of the backfield. A lot of guys that are going to command a lot of targets. So you get rid of Chase Claypool, you open up a big slice of the pie here, and there's no one coming in to replace him that is going to be that great. They have Gunnar Olszewski, Miles Boykin, and Steven Sims sort of vying for that wide receiver 3 spot, which, say what you want about Chase Claypool, this is a massive downgrade for them. So I think this is going to consolidate the passing game a little bit more to those top 3 guys of Pickens, Diontae Johnson, and Freiermuth. And with that consolidation, they'll get more volume. It'll make up for the bad efficiency, from catching passes from guys like Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. But let's break down each wide receiver individually here really quickly. First, we have Diontae Johnson, who I can't quit. Regression is due. We just saw it with Mixon, a guy who had a ton of expected points, was underperforming it all year, and he came out and exploded. I'm not saying we're going to see a 50-point game from Diontae Johnson, but he's the wide receiver 11 in expected points per game at 15.4 expected points per game. This is this chart with the EP column expected points based on how many targets, red zone targets, your ADOT, all of that. How many points should you be putting up on your volume with your target share and what you're commanding usage-wise? He should be at 15.4 points per game as the wide receiver 11 right now, just based on volume. But instead, he's the wide receiver 41 at 10.6 points per game, underperforming his points per game by 4.9. He has never in an entire season, despite playing with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges and Ben Roethlisberger on his last leg, he has never underperformed his expected points per game by more than 1 point per game. Again, he's underperforming it this year by almost 5. I have to believe regression is coming. Now, when we look at the other side here, George Pickens is a little bit different. It's less about regression and more about what we know about rookie wide receivers late in the season and the upside that they provide. This is a really cool chart from Jack Miller where it shows how rookie wide receivers increase point per game as the season goes on while veterans decline, because rookie wide receivers, they sort of get their snaps up, they get their bearings in terms of playing NFL football, and then you see them have some pretty crazy spike weeks on the back half of the season like we had with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamar Chase last year. When we look at this chart, Pickens is going to be at week 10 here. Things should start clicking for him. He's fresh off the bye. A lot of the time we see rookies get a bump after the bye where they sort of, coaches sort of see what they have. They know what they have in their skill position players, and they sort of scheme around that. And he should be in line for more targets with Chase Claypool gone. This is a guy who has finished as a wide receiver 2 or better in 3 of his last 5 games. He has a lot of arrows pointing up here as a young ascending wide receiver. I'm not really sure there's a wide receiver outside of the top 20 rest of season with more upside than George Pickens. Like if I ranked him inside of my top 20 or inside of my top 24 in 2, 3, 4 weeks rest of season, it wouldn't shock me at all. I think Pickens has that kind of upside. After that, we have Justin Fields going from my QB 13 to my QB 7, increasing by 6 spots. And I believe he was on our week 7 skyrocketing video. I was telling you guys, if you read the tea leaves, Justin Fields, the offense looked a lot different where they weren't letting him run the ball. They weren't sort of scheming up designed runs. They were running the ball a ton. They weren't really playing it as a modern offense. Now they're letting him pass the ball more. They're designing him more runs. The offensive efficiency looked better. But even in my wildest dreams, I didn't expect this big of a rebound. He drops a 40-plus point bomb last week. He is now sitting as the QB3 in PPR since week 5 with 25.9 points per game. And since week 5, what the Bears have been on offense with Justin Fields has been crazy. They have been a juggernaut. They are the 7th best EPA per play offense right now, which is just expected points added. EPA per play is expected points added per play. And essentially what it is it's a nice offensive efficiency stat that tells you how many points were you expected to score on a given drive versus how many did you actually score. Again, it's really just an offensive efficiency stat adjusted on a per play basis with like situational context. And Justin Fields leading the 7th best offense in the NFL since week 5 with nothing but Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet until last week when they bring in Claypool is absolutely crazy. And the beauty of this is that Justin Fields, the rushing upside is there. He leads the league in scrambles per game. He just broke a Michael Vick rushing record, which is absolutely insane. And the beauty of it is that this offense is almost set up for him to be a monster fantasy scorer because they're not only more efficient right now, they're not only drawing up more design runs for Justin Fields, but they are playing fast. They had the 11th fastest neutral pace since week 5. They are trying to run plays. They are running better plays than they were before. They just add another weapon in Chase Claypool. And then something on the other side of the ball is they trade away Roquan Smith. They trade away Robert Quinn. They're tanking where their defense is awful. They're trying to build around Justin Fields here. And you get into a spot where there's going to be a lot of shootouts here because his defense can't stop a nosebleed. And then Justin Fields is one of the most electric playmakers in football on the other side. And he's just going to keep on playing comeback football. They're going to keep on, trying to score points. And that's going to lead to a lot of fantasy points for Justin Fields. Now, in the short term, he gets 2 layup matchups here versus Detroit, versus Atlanta, who are allowing the 3rd and 5th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. He should still continue this tear he's been on. I even think because of the defense being so weak, even in tough matchups, he should be great. And again, I have him at like QB7. I think after that big tier of like Allen, Hurts, Lamar, Mahomes, he's right in the mix at like QB 5 to 7 area with like the Kylers, Herberts, Joe Burrows, Tuas of the world. He's squarely in that conversation at this point. The last player we're going to get to today is Antonio Gibson, who has gone from my RB31 to my RB25, going up 6 spots here. And the weird part is that he actually had his lowest scoring PPR game of the season, but the reason we're moving him up is because of usage. And J.D. McKissic is out with a neck injury, which gave Antonio Gibson last week the best role that he's had probably all season since Brian Robinson wasn't playing. Gibson had his 2nd highest snap share of the year at 57%. He had his 2nd highest route participation of the year at 54%. Again, we want 50% plus is good, 60% plus is elite, 54% is perfect for Antonio Gibson. He handled all of the 2-minute drill and long down and distance work. This has been the role that we've been waiting for all along. We wanted him to, be the long down and distance guy, the 2-minute drill guy, run routes, mix in between the tackles. It's perfect. Now, the question here is how long is this going to last? How long is J.D. McKissic going to be out for? And how long is this like true all-purpose back usage profile going to last for Gibson? The issue is that there's no firm timetable right now, but I will say it doesn't look great. J.D. McKissic has like a neck injury. Ron Rivera said J.D. McKissic has already or will see a specialist for his neck and will approach his injury with caution. There has been no updates since then. That is a tweet from November 4th. There's a wide range of outcomes here. It could be like Chris Carson last year where he had like a nerve thing in his back and just he never played again. I'm not saying McKissic is going to retire, but I mean, like if he played like only like 2 games rest of season, it wouldn't shock me. If he suited up in 2 weeks, it wouldn't shock me. So you have a really wide range of outcomes here, but I always kind of lean on the side of leaning in to that big variance. So if McKissic misses like 4, 5, 6 weeks here, Gibson could be a league-winning type running back. If not, Gibson could just give you some production in the short term, and this could kind of be an audition for him to get those passing down snaps. So maybe when McKissic comes back, they still roll with Gibson, right? Maybe they're out of the playoffs. Maybe Gibson obviously is younger than McKissic. Maybe they want to sort of, give him that role, see what it looks like the back half of the season. There's a lot of scenarios here where this breaks right. There's also scenarios here where I move him back into the 30s because McKissic suits up in like a week or two, and it was kind of just a blip on the radar. Really no way of knowing, but that is going to do it for us today. As always, if you want access to my complete rest of season rankings, that'll be on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart, along with my Dynasty rankings, my Week 10 rankings, my start-sit streams on Sundays, All of that good stuff will be on patreon.com/Ron Stewart. It'll be down below in the description, down below in the comments. And as always, if you can't contribute there, any views, likes, subscribes go a long way for the boy. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.
I got the juice, I got the juice.
Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters